commission, and I guess you're the bearer of good news, because today is one of those meetings where we've made some progress, and we'll be able to get to that as we move in the agenda. So we're recording now. I understand that I believe we're also live streaming this on our YouTube channel in compliance with the new public law. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today's date is Thursday, September 23rd, 2021, and the time is 2:07 p.m. This meeting is being broadcasted live on 2 communication platforms, Zoom and YouTube, as required by Public Law 3634. For the record, members of the public may trickle in during this Zoom meeting. They will be muted, but given an opportunity to speak at the public comment portion of the agenda, should they seek to provide comment. Pursuant to 10 Guam Code Annotated, Section 81101, the following members of the commission shall be myself, the Chief of Police, Guam Medical Association Society President, Dr. John Ray Taitano, Guam Memorial Hospital Administrator Lillian Perez-Posadas, and Public Health Director Arthur San Agustin. Could the other members of the commission who are present please identify yourself? I guess starting with, I'll go down here. Chief of Police, Stephen Ignacio, are you present?
Present.
Dr. Taitano, are you present?
Present.
Okay. Administrator Perez-Posadas, are you present?
Present, sir.
Okay, we received notice that Director San Agustin cannot join us, but we do have quorum and we'll proceed. Notice of this meeting was published on September 16th and September 21st, 2021, in compliance with the Open Government Compliance publication requirements. And we have attached prior minutes from our last meeting on January 27th, 2021. For those of us who are present, if you'd like to review and note any revisions or corrections that need to be made. And are there any corrections that anyone see that need to be made? Okay, seeing no comments, we're going to just approve those and we'll proceed on to the next item on the agenda, which is old business. Starting with our locums tenens pathology MOU with the Guam Memorial Hospital. I believe this year, Dr. Abe has performed over 552 examinations. And again, these are non-forensic examinations. So we want to thank administrator for helping us get this set up and for the work of Dr. Abe. I know he's been a tremendous help in getting bodies released faster to families for ceremonies. So Joanna, if you're there, if there's anything else to add, but we're just kind of going through the status of all these MOUs.
Hello.
Okay,
Yes.
Is there anything else to add, Johanna, other than the number that have been performed?
So the MOU, I am putting in a request to increase the amount to another 100 cases. At this time, I'm anticipating for the remainder of the fiscal year, which is about 6 days, we're looking at maybe an average of 10 cases per day. And right now we've already exceeded the 55 max for the MOU contract. So I've submitted a request to increase. I've informed Ms. Posadas of that intent, as well as the Attorney General.
So I believe that paperwork's already making its way through. It might have touched my desk, and it may be heading up to Administrator Perez-Posadas' desk after that.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else, Johanna, or anything else from the commission members on this item?
Yeah. No, sir. Thank you. We have seen an increased number of deaths, especially with the COVID cases. So yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, which is the medical examiner's contract status. And these are for the contract, Dr. Ishikawa and Dr. Lang. Today, they performed 16 examinations and have testified in several trials on behalf of our prosecution. And we have an item to add. We are seeking to add another forensic pathologist to our rotation, and that will be covered under new business. But are there any questions about the number of exams or the testifying of our forensic pathologists who are currently under contract? Okay, if no comment, we'll move on to the contract status for the locum tenens we have with Dr. Dotterman. He continues to provide services under the contract, and to date, he has performed over 285 contracts. Johanna, is there anything to add on this item?
Yes, I've actually submitted a request to increase again for that item, for that contract, because he's actually went over that as well. He's at 291 cases.
Okay, and I think I've seen that budget mod request as well as the MOU
Yes.
touch my desk, and it'll be heading back to you. I believe I just signed those.
Thank you.
AG, leaving much of this is Lillian. I'm sorry. Can we just circle back to the issue with regards to the locum tenens contract with the Hawaii for forensic autopsy? We had a hearing 2 days ago with the legislature, and Senator Tony Atta asked about the forensic autopsies that need to be done within 72 hours, or as quickly as possible. And I know that I did share with them that the AG has a contract with a Honolulu forensic pathologist, but I guess the concern that Senator Tony Atta raised was that the forensic autopsies need to be done as quickly as possible. I'm just putting that on the table, that was the concern that he raised with us at our hearing 2 days ago.
Okay. What I will add that they actually have been responding pretty quickly, and I'd say the longest we've had to wait for a forensic autopsy to be performed is about 2 weeks. So
Okay.
it's not the 72-hour period that would be optimal, but we get them out here pretty quickly. And further down on the agenda, when we get to to the extent we can have any good news in these meetings, considering the subject matter, there's been some movement on the recruitment efforts. So hopefully we will continue to have the contract forensic pathologists in place as a backup, but
Right.
hopefully we're able to identify a candidate from the applicants that we've received soon. So
Okay.
I think that's, we're moving forward, and I thank you for bringing that up.
But maybe perhaps they need to change the legislation. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they brought that up too, and we can get in. I think we're at the point now with our applicants. We'll kind of see where we'll go.
Okay.
But I will say that it's been extremely expensive to prosecute cases, to fly out and to bring on. So, having someone without, we would basically be having to pay the salary of a pathologist and then having to continue with our contract for the forensic autopsies, which I do not believe the medical examiner office budget would support. So they would have to see it increase probably a couple $100,000, which would be of the current budget around 400 to 500,000, a 50% increase in their budget for that to be sustainable. So I, of course, I don't think Johanna would say no to an additional $250,000 per year, but they have to find the money somewhere. So,
Right.
but thank you for raising that.
All right. Thank you too.
On the other, any other questions or comments on the current contract with Dr. Dotterman? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the modernization grant status. And is there a representative from Consumer who will be providing an update?
I will be providing an update. The Office of the Attorney General's, sorry, the Office of the Attorney General received a $227,000 grant from the Department of Interior for the modernization of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. The grant allows us to procure 55 highly specialized items. And I'll just give you a brief update on the 3 different categories. Under the equipment category, the grant allowed us to purchase 19 line items. 8 of those items have been received. 1 is still in purchase order, which is just waiting for delivery, and 2 are in requisition mode, and 8 are pending procurement. That means we're about 42% of the equipment. For supplies, there are 29 line items. 9 have been received, 11 are in purchase order pending delivery, and none are in requisition mode, and 9 items are pending procurement. So we're about 31% complete. The last category is the other category, which is mainly large dollar amounts. There are 7 line items under this grant. 1 has been received, which is the vehicle, and 5 are currently on an IFB at GSA, and 1 has not been or is pending procurement. And that one item is the walk-in body refrigerator, and I'm glad to say that we have a potential bidder on it, and we're hoping to complete that in 2022. That is my presentation.
Fiscal year 2022 or a calendar year, Tom?
Oh, fiscal year 22.
Okay. I know you accountants are always thinking in terms of fiscal year. So for the rest of us mortals who think about it in terms of calendar year, well, that's good news. And thanks for the hard work. I know that Johanna appreciates some of the upgrades that they're seeing with the modernization grant. So kudos to you and the rest of the team. Any questions on, and Tom, if you can confirm though, these funds are good through December 2022? Or is it September 30, 2022? Do you?
September 30, 2022 is when it ends.
Okay, so
we still have another year.
A year. Okay. Are there any questions from the commission members on the status of the modernization grant? Okay, seeing no comment, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the proposed fee legislation status. This is an effort that started kind of before, I believe all of us were part of this commission back in 2018. Currently, the medical examiner office does not charge any fees for any of the services they provide. So we have put together a draft, and the fees will exist independently, will be codified under Title 10, Chapter 81, under the medical examiner office legislation. And then the main change that we've made to prior versions is that the payments will be made to Treasurer of Guam instead of requiring the medical examiner office to handle payments and to handle cash. So ultimately, this will allow the medical examiner office to impose fees for storage, more processing, human body transport, autopsy reports, and other services. And it will be placed into a revolving fund for them to use to continue to keep their processes up to date and for whatever other needs that the medical examiner office may have. And just to give a little bit of background, I know Dr. Tatano, you're joining us now, but these fees they're arrived at kind of doing a survey of both fees charged by GRMC as well and GMH. And they're I don't want to say market research, but they're in line with what the services would be charged at both of those institutions.
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments on the legislation or any questions about the status? And once we're finalized with this, we will forward to Speaker Terlahi as the Chair of Health.
Are these fees being collected at this time? I'm just curious.
No, Dr. Tattan, they have never charged any fees. And I know Johanna had raised that they're kind of used as offsite storage for some of the funeral homes who may not have space there. So there's no incentive for them to bring them to the funeral homes. They just let the medical examiner office store it. So they have not charged any fees to date.
So what's the timeline before legislation is going to allow you to be charging these fees?
So that's the goal with this proposed package, is that we send it over to Speaker, and we'll leave it up to her at that point to introduce it and hopefully move it forward. And again, hopefully have your support as well as the other commission members to allow the medical examiner to charge for some fees, understanding there may be hardship requirements and hardship waivers that can be granted.
We'll support it from the Medical Society and the Medical Association point of view.
Thank you, Doctor. Are there any other comments? And if not, we'll move on to the next item, which is our FY21 budget status. And Johanna, you mentioned we have about a week left in the fiscal year, but if you want to provide an update, please.
So currently, my update for 2021 budget, we're looking at a lapse, pretty much the same as last year due to the vacancy of the chief medical examiner position, as well as there was a vacancy with the number 2 position here, which was the morgue attendant. We had a brief vacancy during the beginning of the fiscal year. So with those 2 vacancies, there is going to be a lapse of about 80,000 right now.
Okay, and again, the bulk of this is because we've been using contract services to satisfy the forensic pathologist needs. Okay. Are there any questions or comments on the FY21 budget? Yes, Chief.
My understanding, we did hire though a morgue attendant.
Yes, we do have a morgue attendant on staff. There was just a brief vacancy from the time that the previous morgue attendant to the current morgue attendant. There was a brief vacancy during that time.
Okay.
But we've
Johanna,
had,
correct me too. They came in at a slightly lower pay, or maybe a significantly lower pay. The new morgue attendant that was hired, or was it the same?
No, the pay was the same as the previous morgue attendant. The starting rate of $12.75. So the previous morgue attendant was also here for a brief time as well. So
Okay.
current.
And so my question was, were we always wanting to hire a morgue attendant? Is that always been the position that was there, or I don't know if there's been discussions about a medical examiner investigator position? Was that
Chief,
ever
what I would suggest for that, because that is something that's come up with
Okay.
some of the candidates that we've received in terms of staffing and how they would like to staff the office. So, perhaps we can wait till we get to that item in the agenda, and that would
understood.
be, yeah.
Okay, understood, sir.
Are there any other questions about the FY21 budget status? Okay, if not, I was reminded by my staff for the proposed legislation. Is there a motion to forward the proposed fee legislation to Speaker Terlahi?
So
I
moved.
move.
Okay, is there a
Okay, Dr.
second?
Peck. I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have a unanimous, so we will plan on forwarding that and providing a status update at our next hearing. Okay, Johanna, just on the next item is the coronavirus relief funding status. I don't know, is that CARES Act?
Yes, that's the CARES Act, Public Law 116-136. And we were provided about $12,000 for personnel benefits and hazard. Currently, right now, we don't have hazard pay for regular services, just for the COVID. And then we were also awarded for supplies and materials like our PPEs, just signs in displaying safetiness in our office, and as well as safety equipments for our office for us to continue servicing the public. So that's about 12,000 again.
Okay. Are there any questions for Johanna on the CARES Act funds portion? All right, seeing no questions, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the name or National Association of Medical Examiner job announcement. I believe that we were able to get that posted again from August 3rd, 2021 through, or through October 3rd, 2021. Any questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to new business. And the first item is the first amendment of the medical examiner's contract. And this is to include the services of 2 forensic pathologists have been primarily providing services to Guam, Dr. Lang and Dr. Ishikawa. So we've been able to identify a third, Dr. Theodore Brown, who is the chief medical examiner of Arkansas, to come in, and he's also agreed to assist our office as needed. So this is just an update to the rest of the commissioners and to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Yeah. Do we need to make a motion?
I don't believe so, but I think it was just more a notification to you all
Okay.
that there is a new doctor coming. Yes. Okay, so I believe there is authority given at a prior hearing for us to handle this, to just avoid any hiccups and delay in identifying additional pathologists who'd be willing to provide locum tenens services.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the new business is employee performance evaluations. And I'm basically asking to renew authority for myself to continue to perform them. This is so that we can ensure the staff at the medical examiners continues to receive their increments and to continue to receive their evaluation. So is there a motion for us to continue, or for me to continue performing these evaluations till we can find a medical examiner?
So moved.
Move.
Okay, second, Dr. Titan will be second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I see
Aye.
hands. It's unanimous. Okay, so Johanna, you can continue to send those to our office for handling. All right. And on the issue of personnel status, Johanna, could you please provide an update?
So currently we only have 2 staff here in the medical examiner's office, myself and the morgue attendant. We work about 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, most days. And I'm hoping that we can go ahead and recruit another personnel, if that's possible. That would really help alleviate all the stress and workload that we have to spread between 2 employees.
That's an FTE, another FTE, Joanna, that you need?
Correct.
Okay, and what title of an FTE is it that you need?
I was looking at either a clerk, administrative clerk, or if that's not presentable to the legislature, possibly a mortician. So it's either one for the morgue or one for the admin. Right
Joanna,
now,
if I could just ask, with the current budget that's been passed, does that support the hiring of additional staff?
Unfortunately, no, not with FY 2022. We had status quo, the same budget that was awarded to us in FY 2021. And so that did not, it wasn't budgeted for 2022.
Joanna, the proposed fiscal year 2022 agency staffing pattern, it does show there's an administrative officer that is vacant, a customer service representative that is vacant, and a mortician, but it's all zeroed out. So
correct.
Yeah,
that is correct. They were all zeroed out because the budget, the government ceiling, governor's ceiling would not fund for those. So I had to remove the request for those positions.
Mr. Chair.
I guess one thing that administrator, I mean, I know that we work very closely with you and oftentimes have to rely on staff with GMH. I mean, I wonder if there's a way that we could work out some kind of cost share with the hospital. I don't know what your needs or demands are in the in your portion with the morgue. I'm just flagging that maybe not something to resolve today, but we can approve the laundry list, Johanna, but if you don't have the budget to support it, then we have to figure out where the money's going to come from. And hopefully we get some movement with the fees. I mean, if you're lapsing 80,000 based on the current budget, that means that there might be some room. But I don't want to give you false hope that we approve listing and recruiting positions, and if you don't have the budget to support it or sustain that hiring. But one thing I will say, and again, if there is silver lining, and well, before we move on, or I'll just tie this in and we can tie back to personnel for the eligibility. So we've received 3 applications for the chief medical examiner position, which is amazing. And kind of going back to the name announcement, all of the candidates mentioned the advertisement in names online database. So our recruiting efforts are working. We've also received interest from a 4th individual who I don't believe meets the qualifications yet, but is definitely interested in the position if it remains open. And so what we would need to do, and Johanna and Chief, on your point, we've had initial preliminary calls just to let them know the status of the commission and our office's role, because we've been handling the applications with the assistance of Administrator Paris Posadas rating them, but just kind of letting them know what the process is going to be. And several of them have pointed out, well, if I wanted to hire an investigator, or I want to go out to the scene myself and I want to observe. So I think depending on the candidate that we select, they might have their own vision for how they want to staff the medical examiner office. So I guess, Johanna, my suggestion would be if we can pick up a medical examiner, we would know the salary at that point, and then we can work backwards and see if they come in under budget, how much room we would have to pick up additional staff, or how much funding we would have in salaries and benefits. But the action item that we need today is to put together or to vote on a search committee, and it can be no more than 2. At the risk of, I would nominate myself and administrator to handle it, just to cover both the medical and the law enforcement interests in interviewing candidates. But I'm open to discussion from both the chief administrator as well as Dr. Taitano, if you have any input on that.
I don't mind participating in the interview if you need me to.
I would like to yield.
Okay.
I would like to yield to the GPD, since it's forensic. It goes in line with his area.
So they've explained to me the reason why we have 2 on the search committee is we don't want to risk having quorum and a decision being made as we move forward with it. So that's why they've said 2 as a search committee, and then we can rate and make a recommendation. Open government. Okay. So Chief, are you wanting to be part of the search committee, or are you okay with if it would be me and Dr. Taitano?
I'm good with that idea, sir.
Okay.
You and Dr. Taitano?
Okay. Chief, do you have any objection to that?
No, sir.
I promise to represent your interests well on the search committee, Chief. So do we have a motion for the search committee to be myself and Dr. Taitano?
I move that the search committee will be with the AG Levin and Dr. Taitano.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Well, I don't know if it's a conflict for both search committee members to have Taitano in their name, but Dr. Taitano, I haven't met you before. I don't recall, so maybe we're distantly related, but we'll proceed. And the suggestion is that we expedite the interview process and plan on coming back around on October 15. So I'm just letting the other committee, this is going to be about a 3-week turnaround. Dr. Taitano, hopefully your schedule permits us moving pretty quickly on this and coming back and hopefully having some good news that we've selected a candidate.
Okay.
Okay, and I do, we can talk about this. The administrator did a great job, and her staff have been helping us to rate. The only item that none of the applicants have is their license to practice medicine in Guam yet. So obviously any offer that would be made would be contingent or conditional on them getting that done. All right, but are there, other than it being an exciting time, I mean, gosh, just seem it kind of, when it rains, it pours in a good way. And maybe with the weather today, but I'm very excited to have received such great interest this time around. And then, Dr. Taito, you're the bearer of good news for us, so welcome aboard.
I have a quick question about the licensing. Are all these 4 individuals, they have applied for licensure? Are they going through the process of meeting the requirements? Because it takes almost 6 months to a year to get all the documents together for license application on Guam.
Yeah, I think they're all interested at this point, and part of maybe this will be great having you on this search commission so you can explain to them what they need to do. My understanding at this point, they meet every other legal requirement, so they have the forensic certification. They're all practicing medicine, but I don't know if they've started the process, but I'm sure if they are selected, in terms of time frame, some of these doctors may need to close up. I believe at least one of them is currently a chief medical examiner for a jurisdiction in the States, so there would need to be a little bit of transition time before packing up and moving their family. But that would be a great thing to bring up during our interviews.
Yeah, the concern I have is that if it's all subject to having been approved for Guam licensure, if we pick an individual and they go through it and they don't get approved. So the point I'm trying to make is they all have to go through the process to ensure that indeed they're qualified to get Guam license. And at that time, it makes it easier for us to decide on which candidate would be best for the Guam community.
Just confirming procedurally, I'm normally a very fast speaker and I'm muffled with the mask on, but I just want to confirm that the administrator moved to have myself and Dr. Taitano lead the search committee, seconded by Chief, and it was a unanimous vote. Can you everyone's nodding in agreement on the record, all 3. So that was, okay. So that's what occurred. Again, I apologize. I speak really quickly and I'm masked up, so it makes it even harder for these guys to keep minutes on our side. But thank you, Dr. Taitano, for sharing that. And I do, this is the first time we've gotten this far to get to the interview phase for any of our applicants. So having your experience and insight on the search committee will be very helpful. Okay, unless there are any other questions, we'll move on to the next item, which we've briefly touched on, the FY22 budget status.
Supplemental.
So for the approved budget for FY 2022, again, we were awarded the same amount of $432,000, the same as FY 2021. There is a short in the chief medical examiner salary. Right now, it's budgeted for $199,350. And then as far as contractual services, there are shorts. There was no budget for the MOU with Guam Memorial Hospital for auxiliary services. And as far as the funding for the forensic pathologist, Dr. Lang, Dr. Shikawa, and Dr. Brown, as in the past practice, we will be working in the event that we do not get fill the vacancy for the medical examiner position. We will be utilizing the medical examiner position appropriated salary for that time until we get it, the position filled. Our office is also going to suffer with no funding budget for supplies and materials. So far, we are really tight this fiscal year. But with the next item on the agenda, that'll kind of bring some light into my agency.
I guess, Johanna, I'm a little bit, so you said that you've budgeted for $199,000 salary currently. Because I know that any offer we make, we're going to have to certify that there are funds available. But in the budget digest, we have certain contractual services that we've, in the amount of $38,000. I mean, are there other areas within the budget that we can move? That, I mean, if we get a CME, I'm guessing that would reduce the amount of contractual services that we would need.
Correct, with this current budget. This is just the regular general funds budget.
Okay, so we'll have to clarify as we move forward with the search committee, what funds are available to offer a medical examiner. But my suggestion is before we enter that, we identify, if we know we're not going to need the contractual funds, assuming once we hire a chief medical examiner, just start working so we can make an appropriate offer. I think we've advertised 225 as being the starting salary. And I would just hate for that to be an issue that we are $20,000 short, $25,000 short of securing a long-term solution. So I just flag that for discussion down the road. Are there any other questions on the FY22 budget?
No, sir. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, and then you'd mentioned the FY22 all rise, but I want to just correct. I believe we're talking about ARPA funds and not necessarily the all rise funds. So Johanna, if you want to just talk a bit about the ARPA funds request.
Okay. Yes, my apologies. It is the ARPA funds, not the all rise. I did propose to the governor an amount of $315,000. And this proposal will cover for the short of the medical examiner of $65,750. And that would bring if approved by the governor, that would bring the salary for the medical examiner's position up to $265,000. In addition to that, I requested on the ARPA funds for 2 additional staff, as well as to cover for the short in the contractual services, supplies and materials, equipment, and capital outlay.
Okay, so these are requests that have been made. I guess my primary question would be, I know that these funds have an expiration date. So the plan to pay for salaries after the ARPA funds are exhausted, you would have to be basically requiring a supplemental appropriation or an additional funding source?
Correct.
Okay. Are there questions from any of the other commission members on the ARPA funds request?
General,
Yes, Chief, do you have a question or you're saying you're okay?
yeah, so I don't know if is this where I circle back to that comment I made earlier about a medical examiner investigator position. And so the reason I bring that up is I'm not sure if you're aware that the Guam Fire Department has been trying to get out of the business of transporting dead bodies. And so I was actually kind of interested in what kind of car they bought for the medical examiner's office. I think myself, Lillian, and Dr. Algan, I believe, has had this conversation because the fire department kind of inherited the job. It's not even by statute, just kind of fell on their lap and into their area of responsibility. But they have a hard time with that because they don't have the proper vehicles to transport bodies. So I think Lillian's shaking her head because we've had this conversation already.
Yes.
And so that's what I was asking about those positions up there. And now I'm asking about that car that they bought for the medical examiner's office. What kind of car they bought, and is it something that they thought of before they bought the car about those responsibilities really falling under the office of the medical examiner?
Well, and we'll turn
that's
over
why I
to
was
Johanna.
asking those questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do know, Chief, that so our office handled the grant application itself, and that was done in I want to say early 2019. So at that point, the discussion of transporting bodies, that it would fall under the medical examiner's office hadn't entered the discussion. But so that would potentially explain why they're not equipped. But Johanna, is this something that they can transport? The new vehicle?
The new vehicle is a 4-door sedan.
Okay, so I'm gonna guess no, unless it would be kind of close quarters for you guys.
We do have a F-150 truck with a cab. And that was purchased with a prior grant, specifically to transport bodies.
So there is a vehicle that can be used. I think the issue then are human resources to
Personnel.
drive that vehicle and to transport that body accordingly. So that way it's not tampered with and not, maneuvered with, but appropriately for in case the investigation needs to be conducted.
Correct. When I first requested for that vehicle, it was specifically in the event that the medical examiner's office may need to transport. The topic of transporting a human remains from a scene wasn't even a topic yet. It was just something that I was anticipating.
So Chief, on this, are you, are you
Well-
suggesting that this kind of be a request, supplemental request that's made for ARPA funds?
Actually, I think what I need to do is, since we're talking about it, I'm just putting it on the radar of the Post-Mortem Commission that we have a non-law enforcement agency who's been tasked, and nobody can find any statute that requires the Guam Fire Department to be that transporter of dead bodies. And dead bodies fall under the jurisdiction of the Chief Medical Examiner's office. And so just it's an FYI, I guess, that at some point the fire department is trying to get out of the business of transporting dead bodies.
Okay, Chief, noted, and we'll have to figure out from a resource perspective.
Right.
And Joanna, not to, but I think the fees, if we start charging and just getting some additional revenue for the medical examiner office to beef up a bit, that might be the solution to some of the problems that we're seeing.
If I may, Chairman, not only human resources, but also the procedure. I'm not sure that has also been established. So,
Yeah, I remember we talked about this, Administrator and Chief, we talked about GPD doing a training, even for
Right.
just in case GMH staff was required to do transport, on what the best practice would be to not interfere with chain of custody or anything else, any other allegations. So Administrator, is that something, if Chief can arrange a training for what to do if there is a crime scene? Is that something you guys would be open to, and you would have the personnel that would be willing to attend that training just in case?
right now, sir, I cannot say because we're just immersed and pummeled and hammered with the COVID
Understood.
patients. But maybe down the road, that will be something in the future that we can work on.
I understood. Okay. Are there any other questions on the FY22 ARPA funds request? Okay, we're going to move to the public comment portion. Are there any comments? I'm not sure how we're handling this, but if anyone has a comment from the public, I don't see anyone else other than us and the participants. So, okay.
I like the term you use, us mortals.
Yes, you know how we work. All right, well, if there aren't any other questions, we will be contacting everyone very shortly. Dr. Taitsano, our staff will be contacting you to make sure you get the applications, and we'll begin setting up some interviews. And we're proposing a 3-week turnaround for our next meeting so that we hopefully have made some progress with the interviews and can make a recommendation, and we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. All right, thank you all. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mhm.